What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Best U Nation with your host Finn, myself, and Adler, right here in the studio today. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Mr. Finn Foster?
I'm doing great, man. I'm feeling great. And for those who are watching the video version on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel, smash that notification bell, and if you're watching it, I got shorter hair. Got a haircut this past weekend, so I'm feeling good. I'm looking good.
The boy's feeling good.
I'm smelling good because I just got off of a shift from work, but I do feel good, and I look good, I think.
That's a plus.
I feel like
a real quick announcement. We had an technical issue with, for whatever reason, uploading the video from last week. So I'm not sure how we're going to try to fix that. We're working on it as we speak, but hopefully this one, we don't have any issues this time. So we'll see.
Yes, and that's also for the audio for all of our subscribers who listen to Spotify, Apple Podcast. I don't know, our recording studio for some reason it's being weird. So Once we get those uploaded, we'll keep you guys posted. I did send you this past week out our little attention, hey, we're working on it kind of thing for Instagram.
Yes, I posted it, so I had a couple people that reach out and say, oh yeah, that's weird because we normally see it early in the morning. So
yeah, it did not make its way out as a debut. But the good news is that we didn't stop. We do have the content. We just got to make sure it's getting out there. But I want to bring something up real quick. So I know we have housekeeping stuff, but I kind of wanted to skip over like all the housekeeping stuff and kind of wrap it up.
Hop right into it.
But I want to jump. Yeah, I want to jump right into it today. And it's funny because I have a lot of energy, and it's not because of coffee. It's not because I ate something recently, but it's because these last few days, I've been doing something I haven't done in a really long time. That's like going to bed before 10 o'clock. And I know a few weeks ago we did an episode where we kind of discussed some of the struggles we had. And
what's like the largest weakness? And then I had said that I probably need to do a little bit better in terms of like
sleeping, right? And I agreed with you. That's something that area of my life I need to work on too, because this is kind of where the topic today kind of derived from, because, I kind of pondered on the idea of, I want to try to go to bed earlier. I want to try to get some sleep. I want to try to see what happens when you actually put forth the effort to doing such. And it's really hard because you and I both can agree we're go-getters. We want to use every minute we have in a day to complete all of our tasks and be as productive as possible. But one of the things that I feel like personally, and the reason I brought this up today to talk about it is because today I felt like I was at an entirely different level of optimism, a totally different level of optimal energy, and my productivity overall today at work, I was way more focused and I didn't feel sluggish and tired. Now, I'm personally going to talk about the quality over the quantity aspect of this, and I feel like kind of post conversation earlier before on my way home, we talked about this where you may disagree with how I approach this, which is awesome because I feel like we should have conversations where no matter how close we are, you can disagree or see someone's viewpoint and go, okay, I understand where you're coming from. So one of the things I really wanted to kind of focus on is the quality of our sleep is a cornerstone, right? It's a pivotal piece of our personal growth. I feel like these last few weeks, these last few seasons have been focused on developing a personal growth mindset and focusing on our mental health. Sleep is important, okay? It enables us to be better individually and also amongst other people. And here are some of the ways that I personally feel that our sleep can contribute to that. Number one is being able to adapt and have a sense of resilience. And let me elaborate, because people think of adapting as like, you're changing in your environment, or maybe it's, you're having to camouflage like a lizard, or maybe like a frog, because Adler, you love frogs.
Not a fan of either one of them.
But one of the things that I feel like this past week, right? Like I told you, I've been getting an adequate amount of sleep. And work in the emergency room, you never know how your day's going to go. You never know what you're going to expect. You never know what kind of emergency is going to come in from the back entrance with emergency, your fire departments and your EMS services. But then you also have people coming from the front door through your triage, and you are recognizing, this patient has palpitations. Well, why are they having palpitations? So your environment is constantly changing. So the adaptability aspect for me personally, I realized that these last 2 days, I've been at my top level. I feel like my performance overall, and I'm not saying that other days my performance is crap. It's just not at its best. I'm not firing all pistons. It's like maybe one or two of my pistons are not firing on days that I only get maybe 5 or 6 hours of sleep compared to 7 or 8 or 9 hours of sleep. And so I believe that, me personally, when you have a well-rested mind, it allows you to be more equipped to solving problems, overcoming certain obstacles. And in this instance, I'm kind of talking about work, and because we did have a STEMI yesterday, start of the shift. Like I'm talking about, like I walked out and the first thing, they're like, we got a STEMI, and I took over the EMT that was on night shift. I said, hey, man, go home. I know you've been having a long shift because of high acuity patients. I say, go home. I got you. I'll take over. We got this patient ready. But I felt like I was moving in such a efficient way because, you're still like, I don't know how you feel. You work night shift, so I know it's a little different. But I feel like even in the morning, it takes me a little bit to really start getting into my rhythm. And so yesterday, this was like a prime example for me. Is like I was thinking faster. I felt like being able to make decisions a little snappier than normal. And I personally, I want to blame my sleep for that, man. I want to blame my bad sleeping habits, which is what we're talking about today, on the fact that I feel like I'm able to see the difference between how my day is when I do get adequate sleep versus a day that I'm not getting adequate sleep. And I don't know how you feel about this, right? But I feel like quality over quantity is a healthier.
Can you be a little bit more specific when you say quality versus quantity? Can you dive into that a little bit more? Because this is where I think that me and you have alternative viewpoints. I'm curious to see, what do you mean by quality versus quantity?
Okay, so quality sleep. So for me personally, I wouldn't say there's a specific time amount, but I feel like it is when you go to bed at a decent time of night. Okay, you find yourself going to bed because you're tired. Your body is letting you know, hey, I am tired. I'm ready to go to sleep. I need to rest. And that's a whole other conversation. Rest and sleep are very different. I feel like sleep is more for the cognitive. Resting is for your body. That's a whole other conversation for an entirely different day. So when you're going to bed, for me, like going to bed at 9:30 versus my normal 11:30, 12 o'clock, I have less time to truly enter into a deep sleep mindset. So for most people, 3 o'clock in the morning is usually when you're at your deepest sleep and you're in REM sleep. So if you're going to bed at 11 or 12 at night, you are closer to the 3:30 time where your body is in REM sleep, where your mind is actually really resetting itself to be prepped for the day. So I feel like when you're going to bed at a later time, you are not getting the amount of time. You kind of rush. It's kind of backwards. Hold on. So here's what I'm going to say. It's like when you have a project, it's like procrastinating. I feel like when you go to bed late, you're procrastinating. So you're rushing to get the sleep. You're rushed to get into the REM sleep. And so you don't actually get the level of adequate sleep that you need. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm having some technical difficulties,
okay, yeah,
but I am
your
serious.
screen froze, but it's okay. I just wanted to make sure you heard that. So
I could still just
quality
continue.
sleep for me personally, it's not just for physical or the cognitive function of every day, but it's really more so giving yourself enough time to enter in the proper um, zones of going to sleep. Because I think, okay, So if I'm going to REM sleep at 3 and I go to bed at 9:30, I got 6 hours that I've got those first 3 hours of 12 that I'm getting sleep. But then once from 12 to 3, your body now enters in this like a reset recharge mode. But if you're going to bed at 12, you're bypassing the first 3 hours from 9 to 12. You normally go to bed at 9, and you really have to now crunch all of the time that you work up to REM sleep in from 12 to 5:30. Like I personally get up at like 5:15, 5:30. So
Yeah.
what I feel with going to bed at 9:30, the quality of sleep is dependent on the zones going from going to sleep at 9:30, giving yourself time to actually have this not procrastinated, rushed process in getting to that level of recharge and reset. And quality. Okay, so actually, my notes I wrote it more so from the quantity perspective. Quality is like the idea of it's the wholeness. The oh God, I want to use the word value. It's going to be better overall. And so I feel like when you do quantity, when you think of quantity, right? I think of the amount. So whether that is a certain amount of tasks, a certain amount of projects at hand, when you have quality over quantity, when you have you could do 5 tasks really, really good. Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong or interject where you want to, but quality, if you do really, really good with 5 projects, like you do top-notch work, that is to me better than trying to do 30 projects and you've only invested 35 to 40% of your value or your effort, so to speak, if that makes sense. So that's what I feel like quality comes into play. It's not that, it's a $5,000 valued sleep. I feel like the outcome of going to bed at a decent time where you're allowing your body to go through this zone by zone. It's kind of like when you do like Orange Theory, where you're in different colors and different zones based off your heart rate and you're burning fat. Your body has to go through that. Your body doesn't go from 0 to 5 on the Orange Theory. It goes 0 to 3, 0 to 2, 0 to 4, then to 5, because your body has to get to that point, to that level. So that's kind of where I was coming from with the whole quality over quantity, is that the healthier style of sleep allows for you to do maybe less projects, but putting more effort. You're pouring more investment into 5 individual projects. And so you're able to manage those a little bit more efficiently versus the opposite, complete opposite, where it's quantity over quality, where now you're doing multiple things at one time. You're doing things like you're doing 30 to 40 projects, but your quality, you're not as invested. Maybe you're trying to dab into each task at hand, and you're not really getting it. It's like what you say, and I'm just going to use something that you say a lot, is that get really good at doing one thing. You say that a lot on the podcast, and that's that quality, not quantity mindset. And so, yeah, sleep is vital, because sleep actually gives you the cognitive ability to be able to get out in the day-to-day, like things that you're doing, whether it's work, going on hiking trips with your fiance and your brother and his girlfriend, and being able to go and do, be successful with that, or us going to a vegan block party and enjoying our time there. Like if you're tired, you just don't perform at the top level. And that's kind of where I'm coming from with the quality. It's just, you're not going to be at your top. You're not going to be at your best. And that's just kind of the opening point that I have. I know it took up a lot of time, and I apologize, but that's just something that I wanted to throw.
I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to ask. Whenever I refer to production team, I refer to my fiance and then your fiance. So I'm going to ask my production team real quick. Can you do me a favor? What's the name of the podcast, and what was the doctor that we listened to with the sleep specialist? Yeah, that's fine. So while she looks this up, I'm going to kind of go into the quality versus quantity, right?
Okay.
So you were referring to the amount of productivity after getting X amount of time of rest, right? You're talking
Correct.
about the quality versus the quantity of the productivity after the rest, right?
Yes. Or the
So,
sleep.
yes. So my counterpoint to that is I use quality versus quantity as well, but I sleep on 4 hours, maybe 5 hours of sleep. You can go ahead and say that. That's fine. Okay.
It's the Liz Moody podcast.
The Liz Moody podcast, and she had
Dr. Jade Wu.
Jade Wu.
And the episode is called Solving All of Your Sleep Problems with Insomnia. Expert Jade.
I'm not sure if you can hear this. Solving All of Your Sleep Problems with expert Dr. Jade Wu. It's a really good, it's like about an hour long. It's definitely worth getting into. I would encourage you to definitely take a listen to it.
Sure.
Maybe you and
Well, I
Cassandra,
struggle with insomnia. So, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. So I have a actual issue with going to sleep. So
yeah. So,
this is interesting about this, but go ahead. I'm
so
listening.
I think I was watching that podcast maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that, after we talked about an episode referring to the weaknesses, right? And so one of the things that I gathered from it, we talked about quality versus quantity. There is, based off of what she said, Dr. Jade Wu, right? There's not really everyone recommends 7 to 8 hours, but there's not really a cement time that any person is really supposed to sleep. Because based off of what you're saying, right? What about the moms, the dads that only get about 4 hours of sleep and they have to take care of their kids? What about, people who work 2 jobs and who are just trying to make ends meet? So I definitely hear you in terms of productivity, right? Productivity might be a little bit sharper, but my counterpoint to that is cutting your sleep shorter. So having like only 4 hours of sleep, right? Research shows that if you spend only 4 hours of sleep, then that means that you spend less time in light sleep. But your REM sleep, you get just about the same amount of somebody who sleeps 8 hours. There is no difference in terms of that. The only difference is now you don't have that light sleep. And light sleep is referring to that sleep where you can still kind of hear and experience what's going on around you, but you're asleep and you're just trying to lightly rest. Resting is the key thing. That's the key word that when it comes to sleep, because there's tons of people who can come out and who have depression issues or anxiety issues that sleep for 8 hours, but they don't feel rested when they wake up. And rested, that's everybody has a different gauge, correct? And the way I look at it, right, is my 4 hours may not be as long as the 8 hours of sleep other people might get, but I'm still getting a really good amount of rest for my body. Because what you'd have to compare it to is, what are the symptoms of lack of sleep? Can you list a couple for me?
Well, typically you are your mindset. You're like your lack of focus. You are more I mean, obviously not to be cliche, but restless. You're a little bit more unfocused. Typically, you're forgetful.
Yes. So like the 2 main things that I was looking for is low energy, poor focus, and forgetful. I'll give you that. That also goes to the focus, but low energy and poor focus. Those are the 2 big ones that people with who don't have enough sleep, those are the side effects that they suffer from on their day-to-day basis, right? Now, having known me since 2018, am I a low energy guy?
No.
Do I have an inability to focus?
No.
So my 4 hours of sleep, although it's less than most other people, it's still qualitative for myself because it's restful. Those 4 hours, I shut it down, my mind is off, and I'm taking the time to actually rejuvenate myself. Now, I can also admit that I do need to do a better job of sleeping more, because along with 4 hours of sleep, other potential side effects down the line can be obesity, heart disease, and you don't want to make 4 hours a continuous habit. However, those things can kind of be counterbalanced with a healthy diet, healthy exercise. You can use overall just healthy lifestyle to kind of balance it out. So, for example, if I cut the amount of sugars that I consume in my diet, usually, have you ever had any alcoholic beverage and you just wake up the next day with a headache and you just feel groggy and you just feel just not yourself? Um, you don't have to answer that. That's fine. Okay, let's say if you don't feel like answer it. But most people would describe that as a hangover. And the hangover isn't the fact that you drink the alcohol. The problem is you consume too many sugars. That sugar give you a super high, and then you're metabolizing it. You're just in a crash. And that's the same thing that happens when you fast, right? Fasting for X amount of time, however amount of time, actually helps give you more energy throughout your day, because now your body's not focused on digesting, it's focusing on giving you the energy that you need. Now, when you have your lunchtime around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you have that crash in the middle of the day. You want to know why you have that crash, right? You have that crash because you just consumed a high carb amount of food. When you fast for a long period of time and then you consume a meal that's high in carbs, it starts to secrete a hormone in your pancreas called insulin. So insulin, when it secretes into your body, it has to metabolize all that sugar that you just consumed. And now that's where your body starts to experience the crash and that lack of energy, because it's like, oh, I just used most of it up trying to produce this insulin stuff. So I'm not saying that everybody should sleep only 4 hours a day. I'm saying that 4 hours of sleep, along with some other healthy habits, it is somewhat sustainable, and your focus and your energy levels won't wane. And part of the reason why I've struggled getting 8 hours of sleep is because I haven't had any direct negative impact in my life from not sleeping enough.
Right.
When I sleep, I'm rested, and when I come back, I try to make sure that, all right, that 4, maybe 5 hours of sleep, I come up and I'm like, all right, now I'm full of energy and I'm focused on the task at hand. And I try to get as many things done throughout the day as I possibly can, and which is what your point was in versus quality versus quantitative. But I would be interested to, and I don't know if there's any way to even check that out. I would be interested in seeing if my body of work versus somebody who has a body of work after 8 hours, what's the difference? Is there's marginally better? Is it like, what's the difference that makes it, all right, hey, you need to sleep X amount of time? Outside of the long-term effects over time with the obesity and like the heart disease and like that stuff, okay, I can submit to that. But somebody who sleeps 4 hours a day can get more stuff done throughout their day. You don't feel like you're constantly like behind because you're knocking stuff down. So I definitely hear you, but
it sounds like more than we can agree that it's really dependent on the individual, because I mean, like for me personally, I have struggled all my life with sleep, and it's a lot of it is it's an undiagnosed situation, but I believe insomnia, which extends from the lack of care in an orphanage, where the constant wake up, sleeping, or wake up, cry, go to sleep, the pattern of that. The child is always looking for somebody, and I'm saying the child as myself, or any child that is in an orphanage like that, they're looking for somebody to be present to take care of them. So like I developed that kind of a sleep pattern where I was constantly awake, alert, oriented, but then I would fall asleep because I'd cry myself to sleep. Your body's worn out and tired. It has to rejuvenate, revive, and then boom. But I hear what you're saying, and I actually do like what you're saying, and it does put a different perspective on it, and I appreciate that. And I'm not saying that what you're saying is it's something that I do agree with, but I will say, like, I guess for me, we both are speaking on, I could do 6 hours, I could sleep 4 hours, but I will tell you, these last few days where I've been sleeping from 9:30 till 5, I noticed that I wake up and I don't feel sluggish.
Yeah.
And I don't feel exhausted. And I sometimes have those restless sleeps. And even though I know I got to get up, and I know like it takes me an hour to really get back into the zone after waking up. But I'm curious to what would you do? Okay, so here's my question: if you know what you can do in 4 hours, what do you think you would be able to do if you slept 8 hours?
I'm glad that you asked that, because here's the thing, right? I've actually done this before where I've gone to sleep earlier, right? And for those first 3-4 hours, which usually, if again, you got to check out that podcast. Dr. Jade Wu, she gave some lovely insight. Usually you enter REM sleep within the first 2 hours of sleep. So after 3, maybe 4 hours, I wake up. And now it's, so let's say I go to sleep at 8 o'clock. Now it's midnight. I wake up and I'm like, oh, it's not time to be up. Let me lay here. Let me go back to sleep. And you wait until sleep gets you, and then you go back to sleep, and then you wake up a couple hours, maybe an hour and a half later, and you're just like, okay, I'm tired, but I think, okay, it's not time to sleep yet. It's only like 2:30. Okay, then you go back to sleep, and then it's a constant wake and sleep, wake and sleep, wake and sleep. What you just described about the orphanage, and I don't have any experience at all, but I go through that on if I try to get to sleep any earlier. So understanding that, like, I don't really typically prioritize getting a full 8 hours of sleep. I prioritize getting, all right, let me get 4 hours. If I can get like 4 hours of sleep, then to me, that just feels good enough. My productivity doesn't increase or decrease because I do 4 hours, and 9 times out of 10, if I'm working or even on my day off, I wake up and I go to the gym immediately afterwards, after I get up. So it's not like, I'm lacking energy. I'm just feeling low. And I'm just like, no, I wake up and I'm like, oh, okay, it's time to get up. Let's go. And I get up and I get to it. And, I'm not saying that I don't recommend it for everybody, but I do believe that one day when I do become a father and I become a parent, that's actually going to work in my benefit because I've trained myself to last like this for such a long time. So I'm not recommending it or trying to do that for ever. I just know that I can sleep for about 4 hours and I can still get things done.
It just sounds like every person in the situation is different. I think like
it's individualized for each one.
It is, and I think that's where we can agree because I just personally like I believe that sometimes I'm a really bad multitasker, so that's kind of where the quantity versus the qualitative versus the quantitative kind of comes into play. And I feel like I'm able to do more of things efficiently and fulfill them more effectively when I do get a better hour of rest. And the thing is, I used to sleep 8 hours, but I wouldn't sleep in REM sleep. I would always sleep very light.
Light sleep, yeah.
Yeah, so I would never actually get a full. My sleep was just light. It was like taking a long nap. So now that I've gotten older, I've noticed that I do sleep deeper and have like a little bit more, probably more REM, and less of the light sleep. It's interesting because my dad. So my dad, he does a lot of. He does like license. He's a licensed mental health counselor, and he actually does sleep seminars, and he focuses on sleep. And he was telling me like this is kind of like why it's. I'd love for him to be on the show at some point. I mean, I've asked him a couple times.
You gotta get.
He's not ready yet. He's still not ready. He's very private. So for him, it's going to be when he's ready. But I will say the conversations we've had about sleep. What's important is he says you go to sleep when you're tired, but you get up at the same time every day. Yep. He actually told me too that going into the weekend. Let me ask you this before I even say this: Do you sleep more on the weekend? Do you like sleep in, or do you get up at the same time, or sleep the same amount of hours?
Because my schedule isn't like you have a fixed schedule where you have the weekends off every weekend. I don't have that luxury.
I have to force that. That's not because like I'm very thankful that I had it, but I know what you mean. Yes, you're.
I I don't have the same days off. I don't have the same days like I work.
Right.
It's always in a constant state of flux. So for me, it's fluid. Like if there's a day that I'm off, like today, I got probably six hours, like
Do
maybe
you?
5.5 to 6 hours, and
Okay.
that's because I didn't work today. I was off today. The only thing I had to do is I start a new contract next week, and I had modules and stuff like I had to get up and do, and like I can say that I got up. First of all, I flew from Pittsburgh last night. I came in. I got up. I went to the grocery store. I worked out, finished some modules, cooked, listened to podcasts like all through the like while doing it, and spent some time, like maybe not like the most quality time with Abby, but after I get off of this, we're gonna spend some quality time, eat dinner, talk, and kind of going through that. But I knocked out everything that I was supposed to do, and by the end of this day, There's only two more things that I need left to do. I try to do my Duolingo to practice a second language, third language technically, and I also practice. I also take. I'm doing like this deep dive into the Bible, the Proverbs, for 30 days. So I'm going to do those two, and then after that, I've done and accomplished everything I wanted to in my day. But I did just about the same amount as most other people do in their day anyway. And I think the thing that this is the thing I think that it irks me because I think that there's a lot of people that hear you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep, right? And they prioritize the 7 to 8 hours of sleep, which rest is important. You need it, right? We've already established that. But there's a lot of lazy people that hear, oh, we need 7 to 8 hours, and then we'll just be like, oh no, well, I need 8 hours of sleep because that's what my body requires, and that's what everybody recommends. And then they'll take that 7 8 hours of sleep and then accomplish nothing with their day while they're up and moving. And that's what aggravates me because if I get my 4.5 hours, you can't tell me that I'm not sleeping enough when I'm doing the exact same amount of work, if not a little bit more than you, because I got up earlier. I got up early and I'm going to be able to do that. Tomorrow I have orientation at this new job, right? It starts at 7. So guess what? I'm going to get up at 5. I'm running 3 miles and then I'm going to sip on my coffee, look at the stock market, and then go into work. I'm going to start that up. I plan that my day around that. I'm going to make sure that I get that done because to me that's a priority. But that's a lot of people don't have that fortitude or that even like the conscious of mind to start, hey, I'm going to plan out my day. They just say, hey, I'm going to sleep for 8 hours and then have no plan. And then you go to sleep and then you spend all day in bed. And then sometimes you're just like, well, I guess I'll just take a little bit more sleep and I'll sleep until 2 o'clock. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that the amount of things that I get done in my day versus somebody else who sleeps a full 8 hours, it's, like you do the math. You have to do the math, right? The math is this. Let's say most people, I have the luxury of working 12 hours. People say, oh, 12 hours, that's too long. I couldn't do it. But I only work 3 days a week, 12 hours. That means I get 4 days off to do exactly what I want to do. On the days that I work, I have from when I get home to eat, workout, read, and then also add on to what's my dream, what's my goal, what's my end goal, which this is where the podcast fits in. I still have to record a podcast every single week because it's a priority for me. And then not only that, I still have I have to work out about an hour every single day. It doesn't matter if it rains, sleep, it doesn't matter. I have to get it done because that's how you stay moving. Objects that are in motion, they tend to stay in motion. That's the first law of physics, right? And that's one of the things that I understand. If I feel like I got it going, then I got to keep it going. If anything out of that routine ever comes off, then I feel lost. I feel confused. I feel conflicted. I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that's the one thing that we can't make light of is a lot of people use 8 hours of sleep as an excuse to not get done what they need to do. They use it as a way to procrastinate. They use it as a way to as a crutch in life. And obviously, if you're comfortable with what you're doing in life, then that's good. No one's going to hate on you. But also, and this is not referring to you, also you cannot like give me any advice or hate on me because I'm doing everything that I want to do and more. So I'm content, I'm happy. And as I said, the definition of somebody with lack of sleep is poor focus and lack of energy, which I've never been a lack of energy guy and I've never been a poor focus guy. So because there is no negative ramifications to me sleeping my 4 or 5 hours, then I'm going to sleep my 4 or 5 hours, and I'm going to keep doing exactly what I'm doing until I like. Obviously, I'll sleep in when if there's an opportunity to sleep in, of course I'll sleep in. But if there's no negative ramification, then there's no point in me, prioritizing something. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the quote that I live by. It ain't broke, don't fix it. I've gotten to this point in life, and I will continue working on like the things that I'm doing, like the side projects and the things that I'm trying to balance and juggle, like outside of the Best You Nation and outside of work. I'm going to continue to do those things, and who knows? Maybe all those things will fail. Maybe I won't be successful, but that's okay because I'm willing to take a risk and take a gamble that if I sleep only 4 hours and I focus my energy on these other things, that they will be successful.
I mean, I agree, man. I agree, and what I like, we've gotten to a point where I feel like what you said, and there's a combination between quality and quantity on this. Okay, so for anybody who's out here listening to this today, to kind of walk away from today's episode, it really just depends on the individual. In this case, I would say that I recognize that I need a little extra sleep than you do, because I noticed that my quality of my day, my productivity, is more valuable than when I sleep less hours. And there could be different factors involved with that. I mean, maybe it's just, I've been doing it for so long, but my body really needs more, but I've always done 6 hours or 4 hours, but my body's actually wanting 8. It's maybe it's an adjustment that I need to make. I just want to go back to real quick about the whole like sleeping and on the weekend. So that was just a little counter piece, and the reason I asked you that is because I was when my dad was talking about it. When you sleep in, you actually shouldn't sleep in. My dad said so this for you it would be your days off, but obviously for me it's the weekend, and most people who work Monday through Friday, it's the weekends that they would sleep in. They say that, or my dad was saying that when you sleep in, you actually
throw off your cycle.
You throw off the cycle that you've created for the week. So if you're supposed to wake up on Saturday and Sunday just like you would wake up Monday through Friday. So you go to bed when you're tired. You don't go to bed because it's 8:30. You go to bed when you're tired. Your body is tired, not because you're forcing yourself to be awake, but you still have to. So that means if you go to bed at 9, or you go to bed at 12, or you go to bed at 1, and you got to be up at 5, then you need to be up at 5. And so my dad was saying you kind of have to do the same thing on the weekend. So that was just kind of like why I asked you.
I understand that. I mean, I can definitely agree with like that. Like if you're normally up by a certain time, then you probably should do that because it stick with you. But again, like, and I use my case, like my case is different. I work night shifts.
Right.
Like I work night shifts, and then on the days that I'm usually up, everyone's asleep, and when I'm asleep, everyone's up.
No, sure.
So that's kind of where I've gotten to the mindset of it's like, all right, if I compare myself to other people, then yeah, I'm not getting enough sleep. But if I compare myself to just compared to like the amount of sleep that I get on a day-to-day basis, if I get 4 hours of sleep on the days that I work, and I get 5.5 hours on the days that I'm off, then that's still good enough for me. And me in my personal life, like I balance a lot of other activities along with the Best You Nation and my gym time. I balance a lot of different things.
Right.
So it's not like those things have taken a hit. I'm curious, like I would say is like in terms of productivity, like if you team me up or pair me against somebody who's got a full 8 hours every single night, I would love to see if like who has more productivity and the quality of that productivity,
That's
not
true.
just not just not just being productive, but how much and like how much quality is it better than mine. So I would be interested in seeing that.
I would too, and I think that's kind of like what this whole conversation is about, though, because at the end of the day, walking away from this conversation, I'm even myself looking at it like I appreciate your perspective because I think that that's the problem is that we try to create a one size fits all. This is what you have, like you said, the whole 7 8 hours, and some people don't need that. And it's interesting as you get older. I don't know if you noticed, but your grandparents, like my grandmother, is up at the same time every day. They get the same hours of sleep, and they're more energized than some of the young people that I've come across. And whether that's routine or that's just because the body knows like you only need so many hours, then you find that your productivity, like you find your happy medium. Um, I just think that when people are thinking about sleep, I think people are also trying to. I was listening to someone the other day talk about this, where, and this is just kind of like my last thought. Sleep, people who miss sleep. So like I've done this before, where it was like last New Year's, and we were out, and we didn't get home till like late, and I had to still work that day, and I knew that, but they say it's almost better like not to get sleep at all, because your body once you
I
go,
disagree with that.
well, I personally think that if I were to go to sleep, I would have gone to sleep. Like I would be knocked out sleeping for hours. So like I that night went home and did not go to sleep, because if I went to sleep, I would have shut into this like the I would need my 6 hours. Like that's just kind
Right.
of how it is. But I think that at the end of the day, like I feel most people, like you were saying earlier, it was kind of creating excuses. Um, I do think people use the opportunity to sleep, and I think it's crazy. People even sometimes sleep 12 hours, but people. I mean, this could be a whole another episode. Like, why is it that people say they need to have all this sleep, but then they actually don't do anything with their day?
Well, yeah, and that's the
That,
thing.
and I agree with you. That is pretty frustrating. Like if you're gonna say that I need 8 hours of sleep to be productive, but you're, just for example, you're at work and you're sitting on your phone and complaining how tired you are, then maybe you really are tired because you don't need 8 hours of sleep and you're not actually needing it. But like they say, if you sleep too much, it's actually bad for you. Maybe the bad is that you slept 8 hours when you really only need four. And
So
I guess it's a
going
learning curve.
good. I'm good. I'm sorry. I'll pitch in afterwards.
Oh no, I was just saying I think it's a learning curve, because me personally, I'm realizing that maybe I need to be anywhere between like 8 hours to 4 hours sleep. Like I realized five, I could do five, but I sure as hell don't want to be sleeping for like 10 hours either. I could
Right.
just my me personally, that's too much. So I feel like a happy medium would be like six, maybe seven, even seven, like at the most. But like my dad, he barely
See,
sleeps.
I'm.
Man,
This is
get up.
where I apologize for cutting you off.
No,
I
it's
just
totally
want to
okay.
just add this point before I get a chance, before I forget. Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious, after your first 3 semesters in nursing school, if you still get that same 6 hours, and if it gets cut back, will you still be able to produce? Because I think you'll still be able to produce, but that means that you're getting less sleep, and that's my point.
But I also think there's an entirely different reason why it would get done. And no matter how much sleep I get, is because it also depends on the individual of how motivated you are and how much you want to get done. That is the part where I do agree. But I also want to make sure I emphasize that the quality of my grades, the quality of my productivity in nursing school is also dependent on my mind and much you, how much drive you have.
Yeah. Well,
There,
so yes, and that's the part that I'm happy that you mentioned that, because in that podcast I mentioned earlier, Liz Moody, Dr. Wu, she kind of said if you have things to do, you're gonna wake up no matter what, no matter how many hours of sleep, you're gonna get up and get those things done because those are important things. So I think that like as long as you prioritize the whatever the goal is or whatever the work is, and you make sure to get it done, then if it takes having to cut your sleep back to 4 hours, even three, sometimes. You have to do what you have to do, no
Right.
matter what.
I'm going to throw this at you. This is just for it doesn't have to be. We could leave it at this.
Yeah.
For anybody listening to this, anybody who's traveled, gone on a plane, has gone somewhere, I find this interesting. This phenomenon blows my mind. I get up at 5:30 on a Monday to go to work. I'm like,
Yeah.
I gotta go to work. Sometimes it's like that, I'm like, oh man, I'm like 3 but let's just say it's next Monday. Normally would work, and your flight to Colorado because you have vacation is also around the same time you would start work. Isn't it interesting that we are up like, oh, we're going on vacation? Yeah, it's still the same amount. It's the same time that you would get up to go to work. Your energy is completely different, but it's like your body knows. There's just like
you wake up with a certain vigor.
It's crazy, and for some reason, like I feel like remember like a couple years ago, you came over, you recorded an episode, and then you took us to the airport. Because I told you our flight was like super duper early. I was like, yo, could you do me a solid?
Right.
But we didn't. We stayed up. We talked, and you were like telling me no more FIFA and no more soccer games until you get into nursing school. And I remember having this whole conversation on the couch.
Yep.
But we stayed up till like 1 o'clock, and guess what? Our flight's at what, like 5 or 6 in the morning. So how many hours do we actually sleep? Like what, 3? But guess what? I was up. Now, if you did that with work, I mean, for me, I'd be like,
and that's the thing that I will touch on, right? If you wake up and you start like griping, like, oh, I didn't get enough sleep, and you know that you're heading into work, right? Maybe it's not this lack of sleep. Maybe it's that you have to change the perspective or the mindset that you're going into work with.
Exactly.
Because when you wake up and you know that you're going into vacation, you have that rejuvenation, that vigor, that vitality. You're just like, yeah, I'm so excited. I can't wait. I'm going to get there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. You have that energy. But when you're getting up for work, you're just like, oh, man, you're moaning and groaning and you're upset and you're annoyed with the fact that you have to go to work, but you have to do it. So the only difference between those two different scenarios is the mindset in which you enter it. Because when you know that you have things to get done, then you get up and you get it done. When you know that you have vacation, you excitedly get up and you get it done. When you know that you have work, you got to still get up and be like, hey, I got to get this done because this is what supports my life. This is what helps with my life. So I know for a fact, if I get up and go to work, this helps me be a better podcast host because then we can, keep the podcast afloat in terms of like, there's certain expenses it takes in order to run it. And now you can pay for it because you got up for work. You can feel a little bit better about yourself because you got up and you worked out. And so now you got it done early in the day and you can go in throughout the rest of your day. And if at night you want to be social and go to a social gathering or something like that, then you can do that because you have enough time. You built it in. So sleep is important. It's something that needs to happen. But I also know that a lot of people's issue isn't sleep. It's mindset.
Yes, it's true. And, for anybody out there who's listening to this today, like we said last week, which I guess no one really got a chance to listen to it. But when it does come out, make sure to listen to the episode before this. But if this is your first time listening to us, we talk about becoming the best version of yourself. And in order to do that, you have to be in tune with yourself. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. Like that's the problem. Like being the best for yourself is not like it's not a destination. It's the journey. And so having a mindset, we talk about things I feel like they give people some kind of like, kind of moments. Like, I never thought of it like that. And the more that I've been seeing, the more that I've talked about this podcast with people inside of work and outside of work, I noticed that people find a spark when I tell them that we talk about stuff that most people are not, or that most people need to hear because it's what most people don't want to talk about because they're afraid that we may not connect. It's so nice. It's so refreshing to hear people like, wow, this is a great podcast. Like what you guys are talking about is important. And so like, while yes, our videos are on YouTube, while yes, all of our podcast content is rolling out on all the streaming platforms, which was Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, you name it. And of course, our Instagram, the Best You Nation. All of those avenues are just gateways to our mission and our vision, which is literally we walk this earth to find purpose. When we find our purpose, we have to start moving with our purpose, meaning you are executing on the goals, dreams, aspirations that are fulfilling to your purpose. And our purpose here, first of all, as healthcare providers, we take care of people. Now we took it to the next level with a podcast that has reached global levels within our country here in the United States. And we're reaching all kinds of walks of life, people who are in their 40s, 50s, all the way down to their teens, and everywhere else in between, men and women, which mostly women listening to the show. And if you're a man, okay, this is something that I was thinking about the other day, and I just want to say this once here now. Men, you guys have something about being in this era of life where we are able to be the difference makers. I'm not saying you need to be just change everything, but what I will say is being in tune with who you are is something that you and I, Adler, I think we've talked about this. We've become more in tune with ourselves. Men can communicate better when they're emotionally in tune themselves. Maybe not. Maybe some people would disagree with that. But I feel like me personally, I can communicate and I can connect with my fiance so much better because I've evolved my thought process and my emotional thinking and responding and communication. What I'm trying to get at is this podcast, mostly women listen to our show, and we're grateful for that because we're two guys who talk about all kinds of things that are from love in season 4 to the first season where we had really no idea what the hell we were doing, but we figured it out, to now we're talking about mental health, and we're literally
what the heck we're doing. PG.
Yeah, sorry.
PG. Yeah.
Keep doing that. I've been using that. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Anywho, it's just at this point of our journey in the podcast, we've come so far, and it's because you guys listen to our content. I think sometimes when you start something new, you have a hard time, following along. Maybe you're having a hard time understanding what the content's about. And what I think is different, what sets us apart, is that we're not just talking about stuff that brushes surfaces. I feel like we dive into conversations and topics that give people the opportunity to see it within themselves. So that's all I got right now, man. I think if you haven't, I don't know, I know we're kind of like an awkward closing because I feel like we're just getting, conversation was getting heated a little bit. I feel like we were starting to add a little spice to the conversation. Yeah. But I appreciate your perspective.
I don't think it was heated. I just said, I just more so looked at it you have everybody, there's no, if I were to say, hey, I need you to get into shape, everybody, not every workout routine works for each person the exact same.
Right.
So it's not a one size fits all. It's just an individual basis. And it's the same thing with sleep. It's the same thing with work. It's the same thing with goals. It's the same thing with dreams. Not everybody's going to take the same path to end up in the same spot. There's so many different ways to do and accomplish what you want to get done. You just have to put in the time to actually figure out what you want to get done, and whatever fits for you, that's what you got to do. So I know, we talked about Moise. We know him, or Jean
Moise.
So Moise. There was a point in time where he would work 7 days a week for 6 months straight, just so that way he could put a really, really, really nice down payment on his house and be able to move his family of 4 in at the time. Now it's a family of 5, but he was only sleeping 3-4 hours and he would drink coffee. So maybe the quality could wane, but we'll never know that because he's still getting a lot of stuff done and he's accomplishing things along the way.
So his quality of life is now better because of he
made a sacrifice, and now he's able to spend more time with his kids, and it's worked out for him. But anyway, guys, we appreciate you guys for tuning in, listening. This is the Best You Nation. Check us out on the Instagram at the Best You Nation. I have 24 hours in a day on Instagram as well. And then check out TikTok. That's we always have like little snippets and clips that we have. And do us a favor, because you love us, because you appreciate us, and because we're so freaking handsome. Please like, subscribe, and share with other people. This is the Best You Nation, and we're out.
We're out.
All right. Hey.